Um, what I was gonna say is R1 and R2. Again, I went over that, and there's no like we live in a three-dimensional world, and we're gonna get to why the world dimension is kind of funky, but that's another motivation is we will review R1 and R2 and why I can't describe it, but it's because I was born into a three-dimensional world and there's no words to exist to describe intuition that I have not experienced and nobody else has experienced. So basically all of this saying we can put a lower bound on physical systems and all of their mechanisms and phenomenon, and we can put and we already know the upper bound of, the universe is expanding, and we have already defined an observable universe. So that's really what's going on there, but R1 and R2 are completely stabilized. Time is irreversible, obviously. Again, time is just a word, and it is a measurement of inefficiency, how long it takes for a process to occur. But no system we measure can be reduced past two components, and that really gets that physics gets to the mathematics of the Riemann hypothesis, or the motivation of the Riemann hypothesis. But basically, again, we're trying to get to the bottom of physics, get to the bottom of math. We're trying to get to the root cause of, when does on a certain graph, when does this circle cross the x-axis? I mean, that's what you get a function, and then you root the function to see where it crosses the x-axis. But you can't deduce it past two components because we live in a three-dimensional world. The universe builds, it fills out, it resonates, right? In the same way you have like a choir for music. The more chords, the more people singing, the more richness, the more robust the vocal presentation is. And so the more facts you have, the more robust knowledge becomes. And so, but you can't root any two, in terms of fundamental physics, any two properties, right? Vibration just has a frequency. You have light, which can be described wavelength or frequency as a relationship to the speed of light. And again, the cosmological microwave background, that radiation is the stabilization of R2. The reason in the Bible it says, and then there was light, because first there was vibration. But in R3, right, up, down, left, right, forward, backward, we're all born physically interacting with these objects. What we're going to do is, vibration stabilizes into light stabilizes into mass. The vocabulary that describes these systems that, again, are indiscriminate of size. Quantum doesn't mean anything unique in terms of smallness. And we can say, what is mass? That is what Einstein and Newton really, what simple question they really start to address is, what is mass? And obviously we have to show that mass is consolidation or condensation, but not in the sense of I have a cold water bottle and the air in the water is condensating, but like compressing or condensating is the right word. It's condensating into mass, right? So E equals mc squared. And you guys keep forgetting the Lorentz contraction of 1 over square root of 1 minus the velocity squared over c squared of the observed object. Silly Einstein in Harvard. But point being, vibration stabilizes into light, light stabilizes into mass. Einstein showed the relationship of mass and light, and we can now show the relationship of mass, light, and vibration. And so that is what it means to physically root something, but that intuition is not, there's no words for me to articulate that to you. But R3 is unstabilized or open. Again, I can chew and eat my pen and digest the pen's electrons, protons, whatever configuration that is to make a molecule. And so I'm going to eat some, I typically eat a lot of lead. My diet has a lot of lead in it. So, I have a lot of brain cells. But point being is things can change shape, things can exchange energy. All black bodies radiate. And so nothing can be created or destroyed. And so there's your second law of thermodynamics or whatever. And so, and I don't know how long this has gone, but these videos take forever. But this will definitely be multiple ones. And so, really trying to show that stabilization of vibration into all the way up to mass, because, right, the people, Einstein and Newton really, really missed, and everybody else really, really missed, Right? They keep saying, what is gravity? Well, gravity is kind of like the byproduct of mass, and nobody's really answered what is mass yet. And so, low-hanging fruit, not really. But, I mean, if you can instinctually derive and reduce all logic instinctually, it's pretty redundant and trivial to me. But just trying to explain it to you for you slowpokes out there. But the words that I have starred on here that are just words that, again, that really, when I just say what is radiation, it's a output, it's a propagating what's propagating, because now, right, if we're showing the stabilization of vibration to light to mass, well, now we have to somehow conceptualize to some degree how is vibration how is that, first of all, what is vibrating, right? If we're outside of the universal considerations. Universal vibration, that's all there was. It makes no sense to say, what shape was it? There was no shape. How long was it? How big was it? How much did it weigh? It makes no sense. And so now we're in a local system, in this thing where you can have a thing with mass can vibrate at a given frequency, like your cell phone, for example. It doesn't say dark energy mode, it says vibrate mode. And so how do we show that vibration stabilizing into mass and that condensation, right? Think of the cosmological microwave background and then all of that energy of light condensating into the physical matter we have now, the leftover bits of it, because there's no completely efficient processes. And so the leftover of that radiation is the cosmological microwave background. The mass that we have today in all of the universe is what we've measured. What the fuck was I saying? So then space, and then we have to say, what is space, right? Because you have mass, deformed space-time. Well, that's just blatant word salad fucking Einstein. So, mass, shape, right? All close things have form, right? Past the opaque period when things were so hot, as the universe cooled, it was cool enough, stable enough to allow for electrons and protons to form and then stabilize into atoms and then molecules and then into form. And so, what was I saying about form? But vibration produces mass. The environment is the vibration, right? Everything in here, I'm vibrating, you're vibrating, everything else around you is vibrating. It all has a temperature. And so that mass is the shape. Again, think of static on your TV, and then again you turn your knob and it all focuses in. And then everything that was static, now you have some form and you have some shape, you have people, you can see different shapes, and then there's blank space, there's white space, there's things in the background, there's a blank wall that's just, it doesn't matter what scenery you're imagining, but there's just some thing of the picture where it's just blank, it's not this static anymore. And so that's really where form and shape comes from, and we have to measure how those relate because they're all moving, right? Well, everything's vibrating. You can't have a vibration or a velocity of zero. Nothing can be perfectly still that you can measure. Theoretically, you can say maybe something can be perfectly still. That's an ideal that doesn't exist. Everything's connected, but nothing is touching. You're always exchanging momentum with other physical systems. Excuse me. And so the word radiation is one of those words where it's like a lot more logic needs to go into it for me. And then we can completely dismiss, when we get into our actual fundamental physics, we can completely dismiss anything with linearity. All motion is rotational. And so when we talk about momentum, might as well talk about angular momentum. I'll do something on trig eventually. It's been like 8 years, I still don't need that shit. But I just, again, from fundamental understanding, there's been nothing that I really needed that for. But we'll get into angular momentum, because of inertia, right? The word inertia is another one of the words, right? Inertia is the resistance to any state of motion, as intuited by Newton, and so now we have our vibration stabilizing into mass, right? In the same way, my pen's just going to sit there until I move it. I'm more massive, I can exert a force to pull this thing up. But how do I relate that to the word vibration? Again, as a fundamental physical process. But so again, just I don't have much progress there. But inertia, radiation, because light has no inertia. It's not resisting any motion. But let me check to see how long this goes, and we might do 2 videos of motivations.